Did you see that?
I can't believe she just did that.
Is that Lucas? What is going on?
They say humiliation builds character. If that's true, I should be ready for sainthood by now. My name is Buster Coleman, and I'm about to tell you how I turned my wife's betrayal into the most spectacular revenge Manhattan's corporate world has ever witnessed. But first, let me paint you a picture of the night everything went to hell. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The Meridian Financial Group's annual Gatsby Night party was in full swing on the 42nd floor of our glass tower. Think champagne fountains, jazz quartet, and enough fake smiles to power Times Square. I stood near the bar, nursing my third scotch, and watching my wife Emily work the room like a predator in designer heels. Emily had transformed herself into what she called an lifestyle influencer over the past 2 years. Translation: she took pictures of her breakfast and called it a career. Her Instagram account, Emily Lives Lux, had somehow attracted 200,000 followers who hung on her every vapid post about skincare routines and authentic living. "Buster, darling, you look positively miserable," came a voice behind me. I turned to see Lydia Marsh, Emily's so-called PR manager, approaching with her usual predatory grin. At 35, Lydia had perfected the art of looking busy while accomplishing absolutely nothing. "Just enjoying the atmosphere," I replied, watching Emily pose for photos with a group of giggling socialites. "Nothing says authentic living like a corporate party, right?" Lydia's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Oh, you're so droll. Speaking of authentic, have you met Lucas yet? Emily's new assistant?" I followed her gaze to where Emily stood. She was practically draped over a tall, dark-haired man who couldn't have been older than 28. Lucas Hartwell had been my right-hand man for 3 years before Emily borrowed him 6 months ago for her brand development. "They make quite the team," Lydia continued, her voice dripping with false innocence. "Such chemistry, very organic." I watched Lucas whisper something in Emily's ear, making her throw back her head in exaggerated laughter. The sound cut through the jazz music like nails on a chalkboard. "Excuse me," I muttered, heading toward the men's room. I needed a moment to collect myself before I did something I'd regret. The bathroom was mercifully empty except for the attendant, who nodded respectfully as I splashed cold water on my face. In the mirror, I saw what everyone else saw, a 45-year-old man whose hairline had retreated faster than Napoleon from Moscow. Not exactly competition for Lucas and his gym-sculpted jawline. When I returned to the party, I grabbed another scotch and positioned myself near a group of secretaries who were gossiping in hushed tones. "Did you see Emily's Instagram story?" whispered Janet from accounting. "She posted a video of Lucas feeding her chocolate-covered strawberries. I mean, where was Buster?" "Probably working late again," replied Susan from HR. "That man lives in his office." "Well, if I had Lucas paying attention to me, I wouldn't need my husband around either," Janet giggled. I felt my jaw clench. These women had no idea I was standing 3 feet away, hidden behind a decorative pillar. Sometimes being forgettable had its advantages. "I heard from Lydia that Emily calls Lucas her boy toy when Buster's not around," Susan continued. "Can you imagine? Poor Buster has no clue." Actually, poor Buster was getting a very clear picture. I pulled out my phone and started the voice recorder, a habit I'd developed during particularly contentious board meetings. You never knew when you'd need evidence. The evening dragged on with the usual corporate theater, speeches about quarterly growth, toasts to family values, and enough networking to make a LinkedIn executive weep with joy. I played my part perfectly, the devoted husband, the reliable executive, the man everyone could count on to be exactly where they expected him to be. Around 10:30, the party reached that dangerous point where the alcohol had loosened tongues and lowered inhibitions. Emily had switched from champagne to gin martinis, never a good sign. I watched from across the room as she became increasingly animated, her gestures wider, her laughter louder. That's when she decided to give everyone a show. "Ladies and gentlemen," Emily's voice cut through the crowd as she climbed onto a chair near the center of the room. "I have an announcement." The jazz quartet stopped playing. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the waiters froze with their trays suspended in air. Emily swayed slightly, her martini sloshing dangerously close to the rim of her glass. "Life with my darling husband Buster is so wonderfully predictable," she began, her words slightly slurred. "Same routine, same conversations, same everything. It's like being married to a very expensive piece of furniture." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. I felt every eye in the room searching for my reaction. I kept my face carefully neutral, though my grip on my Scotch glass had tightened enough to leave fingerprints in the crystal. "But a girl needs excitement, doesn't she?" Emily continued, gesturing wildly. "She needs passion, adventure, she needs—" She paused dramatically, scanning the crowd until her eyes landed on Lucas. "She needs a real man." Before anyone could react, Emily hopped down from the chair and marched straight to Lucas. Without hesitation, she grabbed his face with both hands and planted a kiss on him that would have made a romance novel cover blush. The room erupted in gasps, nervous giggles, and the unmistakable sound of phones being pulled out to capture the moment. Lucas, to his credit, looked genuinely shocked for about half a second before melting into the kiss like butter on hot toast. When they finally broke apart, Emily turned to face the crowd with a triumphant smile. "Now that's what I call a corporate merger." The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear my own heartbeat over the gentle hum of the air conditioning. Somewhere in the crowd, someone's champagne glass hit the floor with a crystalline crash. All eyes turned to me. The cuckolded husband. The man whose wife had just publicly announced her affair with his former assistant. I could practically feel their pity washing over me in waves. I set down my Scotch glass with deliberate care and walked toward the center of the room. My footsteps seemed unnaturally loud on the marble floor. Emily's triumphant smile faltered slightly as I approached. "Well," I said, my voice carrying clearly in the hushed room. "That was certainly illuminating." Emily's face flushed red, whether from embarrassment or alcohol, I couldn't tell. "Buster, No need to explain," I interrupted, pulling out my phone. "I think the video speaks for itself." Her face went white as she realized I'd been recording. Around us, the crowd began to murmur again, phones appearing like mushrooms after rain to capture this new development. "Lucas," I continued, my voice perfectly calm. "I'll see you in my office first thing Monday morning. We have some personnel matters to discuss." Lucas opened his mouth to respond, but I'd already turned away. I walked to the bar, ordered one final scotch, and raised it in a toast. "To authentic living," I announced to the room. "May we all get exactly what we deserve." I downed the scotch in one burning gulp, set the glass on the bar, and walked out of the party with my head held high. Behind me, I could hear Emily's voice rising in panic as she tried to explain herself to anyone who would listen. The elevator doors closed with a soft ding, and I finally allowed myself to smile. If Emily wanted drama, she was about to get more than she bargained for. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp October air that makes Manhattan feel like the center of the universe. I was in my office by 6:30, 2 hours before Lucas was due to arrive. I'd spent the weekend planning my next moves with the precision of a chess grandmaster. The party video had already started making rounds on social media. Emily's authentic living brand was about to get a very authentic reality check. My assistant, Margaret, arrived at 8 with her usual efficiency and a knowing look in her eyes. At 62, she'd seen enough corporate drama to write a bestseller. Mr. Coleman, she said, setting my coffee on the desk. Mr. Hartwell is here to see you. Shall I send him in? Give me 5 minutes, then yes. I spent those 5 minutes reviewing Lucas's employment contract and the company's code of conduct policy. Everything I needed was right there in black and white, signed and witnessed. When Lucas walked in, he looked like a man heading to his own execution. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. Good. Sit down, Lucas, I said without looking up from his file. He slumped into the chair across from my desk like a deflated balloon. Buster, about Friday night. Let me save you the trouble of explaining, I interrupted, finally meeting his eyes. I've reviewed your contract, and I think we both know where this conversation is heading. Lucas's face went pale. You can't fire me over what happened at the party. It wasn't during work hours, and actually I can. I slid a copy of his contract across the desk. Page 7, Section 3. Employee agrees to conduct themselves in a manner that reflects positively on Meridian Financial Group at all company events and functions. Friday night was a company event, Lucas. His hands shook slightly as he flipped through the pages. This is about Emily, isn't it? You're firing me because you're jealous. I leaned back in my chair and studied him. Lucas Hartwell had always been ambitious, but I'd mistaken his hunger for loyalty. My mistake. I'm firing you because you violated your employment contract and engaged in conduct detrimental to the company's reputation, I said evenly. The fact that you were doing it with my wife just makes it personal. Emily told me you two were practically separated, he protested. She said your marriage was over in everything but name. And you believed her? I couldn't help but laugh. Lucas, Emily tells people whatever they want to hear. It's her specialty. Last month she told her followers she was practically vegan while eating a bacon cheeseburger. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. You know what the really pathetic part is? You actually thought she cared about you. Emily doesn't care about anyone except Emily. You were just her latest accessory. That's not true, Lucas said, but his voice lacked conviction. I turned back to face him. Tell me, Lucas, when did Emily first start paying attention to you? Was it before or after she found out about your trust fund? Bingo. Oh, yes, I know about Daddy's money, I continued. Emily has a sixth sense for wealth. She could smell your inheritance from across the office. Security will escort you out in 10 minutes, I said, returning to my desk. Your personal items will be boxed and sent to your apartment. Your final paycheck will be direct deposited, minus the company credit card charges from your little romantic dinners. Lucas shot to his feet. You can't do this. I'll sue you for wrongful termination. With what money? Your trust fund doesn't kick in until you're 30, and good luck finding another job in this industry after I make a few phone calls. I picked up my pen and returned to my paperwork. Close the door on your way out. After Lucas left, I made my second call of the day. Janine Morrison, came the familiar voice of my oldest friend. Janine, it's Buster. I need a favor. Janine had been my friend since college, back when she was studying journalism and I was grinding through business courses. Now she worked as a senior editor at Manhattan Insider, a gossip rag that was perfectly positioned for what I had in mind. I saw the video, she said without preamble. Emily's really done it this time, hasn't she? That's what I'm calling about. How would you like an exclusive story about the influencer who isn't quite as authentic as she claims? There was a pause, then a sound that might have been Janine rubbing her hands together. What do you have? Video evidence, financial records, and a very interesting story about brand authenticity and corporate misconduct. Interested? Send me everything. This could be front-page material. My third call was to HR. Linda, it's Buster Coleman. I need to discuss Emily's brand ambassador contract. Linda Patterson had been with the company for 15 years and knew where all the bodies were buried. She also had no patience for nonsense. I was wondering when you'd call, she said. I saw the party video. Quite the performance. Indeed. I'm invoking the morality clause in her contract. Effective immediately. Consider it done. I'll have the termination paperwork ready within the hour. Emily's brand ambassador deal with Meridian had been worth $50,000 a year, plus expenses. It wasn't a fortune, but it was her primary source of legitimate income. Without it, her lifestyle influencer career would collapse faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. By noon, the dominoes were falling exactly as I'd planned. Janine called to confirm the story would run in Tuesday's edition, complete with photos from the party and some very unflattering details about Emily's authentic lifestyle. Emily herself didn't call until 2:30. I let it go to voicemail 3 times before finally answering. "Buster, thank God," she gasped. "We need to talk." "I'm listening." "Not over the phone. Can you come home, please?" "I'm rather busy today. I've had to fire your boyfriend and terminate your contract. Paperwork, you understand." The silence stretched so long, I thought she'd hung up. "You did what?" she finally whispered. "You heard me. Lucas is unemployed, and you're no longer associated with Meridian Financial in any capacity. I thought you'd appreciate the authenticity." "Buster, you can't. This is insane. It was just a stupid mistake. I was drunk." "Drunk people tell the truth, Emily. You just told 200 of Manhattan's most connected people exactly what you think of our marriage. I'm simply responding in kind. I'm coming to your office. Security has instructions not to admit you to the building. You're no longer an employee." I hung up and turned off my phone. Outside my window, Manhattan hummed with its usual energy, oblivious to the small drama playing out 42 floors above the street. Margaret knocked and entered with a stack of papers. "The termination documents are ready for your signature, Mr. Coleman. Also, there's a woman in the lobby claiming to be your wife. She seems distressed." I signed the papers with a flourish. "Tell security that Mrs. Coleman is no longer authorized for building access. If she becomes disruptive, they should call the police." "Very good, sir. Will there be anything else?" "Actually, yes. Could you arrange for a locksmith to change the locks on my apartment? Today, if possible." Margaret's expression didn't change, but I caught the slightest hint of approval in her eyes. "Of course, Mr. Coleman. I'll handle it personally." As she left, I allowed myself a moment of satisfaction. Emily had spent years treating me like an accessory, something reliable and boring that she could take for granted. She'd forgotten that boring men often have the most interesting secrets. My phone buzzed with a text from Janine. "Story's locked and loaded for tomorrow. You might want to stay off social media for a few days." I poured myself a scotch from the bottle I kept in my desk drawer and raised it in a silent toast. Emily wanted excitement and passion. She was about to get more of both than she could handle. The revenge was just getting started. Tuesday morning brought the kind of media storm that publicists either dream about or have nightmares over, depending on which side of the story they're on. Emily was definitely on the nightmare side. Manhattan Insider's headline read, "Fake Influencer's Real Affair, Inside Emily Coleman's Web of Lies." Janine had outdone herself. The article included not just the party video, but screenshots of Emily's DMs bragging about manipulating her followers, photos of her eating meat while promoting veganism, and a particularly damaging quote from Lucas about their arrangement. My phone had been buzzing since 6 a.m., but I ignored it. Instead, I focused on my morning routine. Shower, coffee, Wall Street Journal, and a careful review of the company's quarterly reports. Normal life, exactly as Emily had mocked it. I arrived at the office to find Margaret already fielding calls from reporters. "Mr. Coleman," she said as I passed her desk, "you have 17 media requests, 43 missed calls from Mrs. Coleman, and Victor Reeves wants to see you immediately." Victor Reeves. At 50, Victor was everything I wasn't. Tall, silver-haired, and blessed with the kind of natural charisma that made people trust him with their money. He'd been angling for my position as Senior VP of Client Relations for 3 years, and Emily's public meltdown had just handed him the perfect ammunition. Send me up when you're ready, I told Margaret, and hold all calls. Victor's corner office was a shrine to his own success. Awards, photos with politicians, and a view of Central Park that probably cost the company more per square foot than most people's apartments. He was standing at his window when I entered, hands clasped behind his back in a pose I'm sure he practiced in the mirror. "Buster," he said without turning around, "hell of a weekend you've had." "Just another day in paradise," I replied, taking a seat without being invited. He turned to face me, his expression a masterpiece of false concern. "The board is worried about the negative publicity. Having our senior VP's personal life splashed across the tabloids isn't exactly the image we want to project." "Since when does the board care about tabloids?" "Since those tabloids start affecting client confidence." Victor moved to his desk and pulled out a folder. "I've had 3 clients call this morning asking if their accounts are secure. They're concerned about the stability of our leadership team." I leaned forward. "Which 3 clients?" Victor's hesitation was barely perceptible, but I caught it. "The Hartwell Group, Morrison Industries, and—" "Bullshit." I stood up and walked to his desk. "The Hartwell Group is Lucas's family company, and they've been trying to move their account for months. Morrison Industries doesn't even know my name, and you didn't mention a 3rd client because you're making this up." His composure cracked slightly. "The point is, Buster, your personal problems are becoming professional problems. The board thinks it might be best if you took some time off, let things cool down." "How thoughtful. And I suppose you'd be willing to cover my responsibilities while I'm gone?" "If necessary, yes. For the good of the company." I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder app, making sure Victor could see what I was doing. "Tell me, Victor, how long have you been planning this little coup? Did you know about Emily and Lucas before the party?" "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm implying that you've been feeding information to my wife and her boy toy for months, hoping they'd create exactly this kind of situation." I stepped closer to his desk. "Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out?" Victor's face went white. "That's a serious accusation. It's about to become a serious problem for you." I pulled a manila envelope from my jacket and dropped it on his desk. "Go ahead. Take a look." With trembling hands, Victor opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of photographs and printed emails. His face went from white to green as he realized what he was looking at. "Where did you get these?" he whispered. "Let's just say that when you're planning to destroy someone's career, you shouldn't use company email to coordinate with their wife." I sat back down and crossed my legs, especially when that someone has friends in IT who owe him favors. The photos showed Victor and Emily having lunch at an expensive restaurant, their heads close together in intimate conversation. The emails were even more damaging. Detailed discussions about my schedule, my client meetings, and my weaknesses that could be exploited. "This isn't what it looks like," Victor stammered. "Really? Because it looks like you've been conspiring with my wife to undermine my position at this company. What would you call it?" Victor slumped in his chair like a deflated balloon. "It was Emily's idea. She said you were holding her back, that she deserved better. She just wanted information about your schedule, your business trips. I thought she was planning a surprise or something." "And the part where you promised her I'd be out of the picture soon? Was that part of the surprise, too?" He buried his face in his hands. "Jesus, Buster, what do you want?" "I want you to call the board and tell them you were mistaken about those client concerns. I want you to recommend that the company issue a statement supporting me and condemning the invasion of my privacy. And I want you to stay the hell out of my way." "And if I don't?" I stood up and straightened my tie. "Then these photos and emails get sent to every member of the board, along with a detailed report about your attempt to manipulate company politics for personal gain. How do you think that will play with the partners?" Victor nodded slowly. "I'll make the calls." "Excellent. Oh, and Victor, If you ever contact my wife again, I'll make sure your next performance review includes a very interesting section about professional ethics. I left his office feeling lighter than I had in months. 2 down, 1 to go. Margaret was waiting for me with a cup of coffee and a knowing smile. How did the meeting go, Mr. Coleman? Very productive. Any word from Mrs. Coleman? She's been calling every 15 minutes. She also sent flowers with a note. Margaret handed me a small card. Emily's handwriting was barely legible. Buster, please call me. We can fix this. I love you. E. I dropped the card in the trash. Send the flowers to the pediatric ward at Mount Sinai. Children shouldn't have to suffer just because adults make poor choices. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls. The company's PR department was working overtime to control the damage, but Emily's influencer world was imploding spectacularly. 3 major brands had dropped her by noon, and her Instagram comments section looked like a war zone. Around 5 o'clock, Margaret knocked on my door. Mr. Coleman, there's someone here to see you. She says she's your wife, but she's not on the approved visitor list. I looked out my window and saw Emily pacing back and forth on the sidewalk below, her phone pressed to her ear. Even from 42 floors up, I could see her gesturing wildly. Tell security to keep an eye on her. If she tries to enter the building, have them escort her away. Already done, sir. Also, you have a dinner reservation at Le Bernardin at 7:30. I thought you might appreciate a quiet evening. Margaret was worth her weight in gold. Perfect. And Margaret? Take tomorrow off. You've earned it. As I packed up my briefcase, I allowed myself a moment of satisfaction. Emily had spent years treating our marriage like a business arrangement, complete with cost-benefit analyses and strategic partnerships. She'd forgotten that I was actually good at business. My phone buzzed with a text from Janine. Emily's trying to do damage control on Instagram Live. You might want to watch this. I pulled up Emily's Instagram account and clicked on the live video. She was sitting in what looked like a hotel room, her eyes red and puffy from crying. I want to apologize to everyone who's been hurt by the recent stories about me, she was saying. I made a terrible mistake, and I take full responsibility for my actions. The comments were brutal. Fake. Where's your husband? What about the vegan lies? You're pathetic. Emily tried to continue, but her voice kept breaking. My marriage is going through a difficult time, and I handled it in the worst possible way. I betrayed someone I love, and I'm paying the price for that betrayal. More comments flooded in. Too little too late. Your husband deserves better. Delete your account. After 10 minutes of stumbling through apologies and excuses, Emily gave up and ended the stream. Within an hour, clips of her breakdown were all over Twitter and TikTok. I closed my laptop and headed for the elevator. Le Bernardin awaited, and I had a celebration dinner to enjoy. As the elevator descended toward the lobby, I thought about Emily's tearful apology. She was sorry, all right. Sorry she got caught. But her apology tour was just getting started, and I had a few more surprises in store. The divorce papers were filed on Wednesday morning, exactly 72 hours after Emily's public humiliation. My lawyer, David Steinberg, had worked through the night to prepare the documents, and they were a thing of beauty. The prenup's infidelity clause is ironclad, David explained as we sat in his mahogany-paneled office. She gets the minimum allowable under New York law, which amounts to essentially nothing. The apartment, the cars, the investment accounts, all yours. David was the kind of lawyer other lawyers feared, a shark in a $1,000 suit who could smell weakness from across Manhattan. He'd handled my business contracts for years, and I'd specifically chosen him for this moment. What about her influencer income? Legally, it's considered separate property, but given recent events, David smiled coldly. I don't think that's going to be much of a concern. He was right. Emily's brand partnerships were evaporating faster than water in the desert. Her follower count had dropped by 30,000 overnight, and the comments on her posts had become so toxic that she'd disabled them entirely. "There is one complication," David continued. "She's hired representation. Amanda Cross from Cross & Associates. I knew Amanda by reputation, a feminist lawyer who specialized in defending women against powerful men. She was smart, ruthless, and expensive. Emily must have borrowed money to afford her." "Let me guess, she's claiming emotional abuse?" "Among other things. She's also suggesting that you orchestrated the entire scandal to damage her career and reputation." I laughed. "She orchestrated it herself by kissing another man at a company party. I just documented it." "That's exactly what we'll argue. But be prepared for this to get ugly, Buster. Amanda Cross doesn't play fair." As if summoned by our conversation, David's secretary knocked and entered. "Mr. Steinberg, Amanda Cross is on line 1. She says it's urgent." David picked up the phone and activated the speaker. "Amanda, how can I help you?" "Cut the pleasantries, David. Your client is destroying my client's life, and it needs to stop." Amanda Cross had the kind of voice that could freeze champagne, crisp, cold, and utterly without warmth. "My client is simply exercising his legal rights," David replied smoothly. "If your client is experiencing consequences for her actions, that's not Mr. Coleman's fault." "Bullshit. He's using his corporate connections to blacklist her from brand partnerships. He's orchestrating a campaign of harassment and intimidation." I leaned toward the phone. "Hello, Amanda. This is Buster Coleman. I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Mr. Coleman, I strongly advise you not to speak without counsel present." "My counsel is present. And I want to be very clear about something. I haven't contacted a single one of Emily's sponsors or partners. I haven't orchestrated anything. Your client destroyed her own reputation by publicly humiliating herself and her marriage. The video evidence shows exactly what happened. Emily kissed another man at a public event in front of 200 witnesses while announcing that she needed a real man. If brands are dropping her because of that behavior, it's because they don't want to be associated with that kind of conduct." There was a long pause. "We'll see you in court, gentlemen." The line went silent. "She's rattled," David observed. "That's good. Rattled lawyers make mistakes." I left David's office and headed to the gym, a routine I'd maintained religiously for 20 years. Physical fitness was one of the few things Emily had never mocked, probably because it didn't fit her narrative of me as a boring, sedentary executive. The Meridian Athletic Club occupied 2 floors of a building in Midtown, complete with a pool, basketball court, and enough high-end equipment to outfit a professional sports team. It was also where Manhattan's financial elite came to network, gossip, and occasionally exercise. I was halfway through my workout when I spotted Lucas at the bench press, struggling with a weight that was clearly too heavy for him. His form was terrible, and he was drawing stares from the other members. Perfect. I finished my set and walked over to where he was resting between attempts. "Need a spotter?" Lucas looked up, startled. His face went through several expressions before settling on wary hostility. "I'm fine." "You sure? That's a lot of weight. Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself." "What do you want, Buster?" I sat down on the bench next to him, close enough that our conversation would remain private. "I want to give you some advice, man to man." "I don't need your advice." "Sure you do. See, you're making the same mistake Emily made. You're thinking this is personal, that I'm doing this because I'm jealous or hurt. But this isn't about emotions, Lucas. This is about consequences." I stood up and added another 45-pound plate to each side of the barbell. "You made a choice to betray someone who trusted you. Emily made a choice to humiliate her marriage in public. Now you're both dealing with the results of those choices." Lucas stared at the loaded barbell. "You can't ruin my entire life over one mistake." "Watch me." I picked up his water bottle and dumped it over his head, the cold liquid soaking his designer workout clothes. "Oops, my mistake." The gym went quiet. Every conversation stopped. Every machine fell silent. Lucas sputtered and wiped water from his eyes, his face turning red with embarrassment and rage. "You're insane," he whispered. "No, I'm thorough, and I'm just getting started." I leaned closer. "Emily's already thrown you under the bus in her interviews. She's telling everyone you seduced her, that you took advantage of her vulnerability. How long do you think it'll be before she blames the whole thing on you?" Lucas's face went white. "She wouldn't." "She already has. Check her Instagram story from this morning." I walked away, leaving him dripping and humiliated in front of Manhattan's most connected businessmen. By tomorrow, everyone would know that Lucas Hartwell couldn't handle his liquor, his women, or apparently his water bottle. My phone buzzed with a text from Janine. "Emily's doing a tell-all interview with Channel 7 tonight. Thought you should know." I checked my watch. The interview would air during the evening news, prime time for maximum damage. Emily was doubling down on her victim narrative, which meant it was time to play my next card. I called Margaret from the car. "I need you to arrange a press conference for tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., the conference room at Meridian, and contact our client list. I want testimonials about my character and professionalism." "Of course, Mr. Coleman. Anything else?" "Yes. Remember that folder of Emily's private communications that we discussed? The one with her real opinions about her followers and sponsors?" "I remember. It's time to share those with the appropriate parties." By the time I reached my apartment, newly secured with changed locks, Emily's interview was already trending on social media. I poured myself a scotch and settled in to watch the show. Emily had clearly been coached by Amanda Cross. She sat in the Channel 7 studio wearing a conservative black dress, her makeup designed to make her look vulnerable and sympathetic. The interviewer, Sarah Martinez, was known for her tough questions, but she was treating Emily with kid gloves. "Tell us about your marriage to Buster Coleman," Sarah began. "Buster is a good man, but our relationship had become stagnant. We were like roommates, not husband and wife. I felt invisible, unappreciated." Emily's voice trembled slightly. "I made a terrible mistake, but it came from a place of loneliness and desperation." "What about Lucas Hartwell? How did that relationship develop?" "Lucas was kind to me when my husband wasn't. He listened to me, made me feel valued. I know it was wrong, but I was in a very dark place emotionally." Sarah leaned forward. "Some people are saying you orchestrated the entire incident for publicity. How do you respond to that?" Emily's eyes flashed with genuine anger. "That's ridiculous. Who would destroy their own marriage for publicity? My wife and her boyfriend are planning to rob our joint accounts and destroy our apartment tonight. I have documentation of their entire plan." A pause. "How do you have documentation?" "Does it matter? The point is, I can prove premeditation. This isn't a crime of passion. It's calculated theft and destruction of marital property." "If you have proof of that, it changes everything. She could face criminal charges, and it would completely eliminate her claim to any marital assets." "That's what I was hoping you'd say." I gave Ava a quick rundown of what we'd discovered. She listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. "Ethan, I need you to be very careful here. If you're planning to catch them in the act, make sure you do it legally. Record everything, but don't interfere until they've actually committed crimes, and for God's sake, make sure you're safe." "I will." "And Ethan, after tonight, your wife is going to be facing serious legal consequences. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about Vanessa's message. I want him to know what it feels like to lose everything. "Yeah," I said. "I'm prepared." Mike and I spent the next hour setting up our surveillance system. Cameras in every room, audio recording devices, and a direct feed to cloud storage that Vanessa or Lucas couldn't access or destroy. At 11:15 p.m., I got a text from Vanessa. "Staying at Lucas's tonight. Don't wait up. We have an early shoot tomorrow." "Showtime," Mike said. I turned off all the lights in the apartment and settled into our bedroom closet with a clear view of the hallway. Mike positioned himself in the kitchen pantry with his laptop, monitoring the building's security cameras. At 12:43 a.m., the front door opened quietly. Vanessa entered first, using her key, followed by Lucas. They both had large duffel bags and moved with the practiced stealth of people who'd done this before. "Start with the electronics," Vanessa whispered. "Laptop, tablets, anything valuable." "What about the cameras?" Lucas asked. "Ethan's too cheap for a real security system, just basic smoke detectors." If only she knew. I watched through the crack in the closet door as they systematically looted our apartment. Lucas stuffed my computer equipment into his bags while Vanessa focused on jewelry, designer items, and anything else that could be easily converted to cash. But it was what happened next that sealed their fate. Vanessa pulled out a can of spray paint and began writing on our bedroom wall. "Boring, pathetic loser." She moved to the living room and continued. "Your wife never loved you." Lucas, meanwhile, was in the kitchen, emptying containers of food onto the floor and smashing dishes. The sound was deafening in the quiet apartment. "This is for all those boring dinners," Vanessa said, spray painting the refrigerator. "And all those nights I had to pretend you were enough." They spent 20 minutes destroying everything they couldn't steal. Furniture overturned, clothes scattered, family photos torn and scattered across the floor. The final insult came when Vanessa sat down at our dining table and used my laptop, which she thought she'd stolen but was actually a decoy Mike had prepared, to transfer every remaining dollar from our joint accounts to her personal account. 43,000, she announced. "Not bad for one night's work." "What about credit cards?" Lucas asked. "Already maxed them out this afternoon. Bought a bunch of stuff online and had it delivered to a P.O. box." They were thorough. I had to give them that. By the time they finished, our apartment looked like it had been hit by a tornado, and our bank accounts were empty. "Should we leave him a note?" Lucas asked. "The wall art says everything I need to say," Vanessa replied. "Let's get out of here." They left at 2:17 a.m., bags full of stolen property, thinking they'd destroyed my life. What they'd actually done was provide me with crystal clear evidence of felony theft, criminal mischief, and fraud. All of it recorded in high definition, with audio, and automatically backed up to servers they'd never be able to access. Mike emerged from the pantry, grinning despite the destruction around us. "Please tell me you got all of that," I said. "Every second. Audio, video, financial records. It's all documented." He looked around at the destroyed apartment. "Jesus, Ethan. She really hated you." I surveyed the damage. Years of my life reduced to rubble and graffiti. But instead of anger, I felt something like relief. "No," I said. "She really underestimated me." I called 911 first, then Ava. By 3 a.m., our apartment was crawling with police officers, crime scene photographers, and insurance adjusters. Detective Torres, a tired-looking woman in her 40s, reviewed the surveillance footage on Mike's laptop. "This is pretty clear-cut," she said. "She's painted herself as the victim of an emotionally abusive husband, when the truth is that she's a calculating manipulator who saw our marriage as a business opportunity." Another reporter called out, "What about Lucas Hartwell? Was he aware of these plans?" I clicked to the next screen, which showed a series of messages between Emily and Lucas. "Judge for yourself. These are conversations between Emily and Lucas, discussing their arrangement and their plans for my money. Lucas's messages were even more damaging than Emily's. Once we're married, we can sell the penthouse and buy something in the Hamptons. Your husband's got great taste in real estate. How long do we have to wait before you file for divorce? I'm getting tired of sneaking around. Maybe we should make it more obvious. If he catches us publicly, you can claim emotional distress and get more money." The room exploded in questions and shouted comments. I raised my hand for silence. "I have one final piece of evidence to share with you." The screen changed to show a video player. I clicked play, and Emily's voice filled the room. It was a recording from our kitchen, made just 2 weeks before the infamous party. "Buster's so predictable," Emily was saying to someone off camera, presumably Lucas, based on the male laughter in the background. "He thinks I'm building a brand, but I'm really building an exit strategy. Once I have enough followers and sponsors, I won't need his money anymore." "What if he finds out?" Lucas's voice was clearly audible. "He won't. He's too busy with work to pay attention to what I'm really doing. And even if he does, what's he gonna do? Divorce me? I'll take him for everything he's worth and play the victim card. The media loves a good, powerful man destroys innocent woman story." I stopped the recording and looked out at the stunned faces in the audience. That recording was made in my own kitchen, in my own home, by the woman who promised to love and honor me, the woman who is now claiming that I'm the villain in this story. I closed my laptop and straightened my tie. I didn't destroy Emily's career or reputation. She did that herself, with her own words and actions. I simply documented the truth and shared it when she decided to lie about me publicly. "Mr. Coleman," called out a reporter from the back, "what's your response to people who say you're being vindictive?" My response is this: Emily built her entire brand on the concept of authentic living. Well, this is as authentic as it gets. These are her real thoughts, her real plans, her real character. If people don't like what they see, maybe they should ask themselves why they were so eager to believe the fake version. I stepped away from the podium, but another reporter's question stopped me. "What happens now? Are you seeking reconciliation?" I turned back to the microphone. There is no reconciliation possible with someone who sees you as nothing more than a bank account with legs. Emily made her choice when she decided to treat our marriage like a business transaction. Now she gets to live with the consequences of that choice. As I left the conference room, I could hear the reporters already calling their editors, the story spreading like wildfire through Manhattan's media ecosystem. By noon, Emily's text messages would be trending on Twitter. By evening, every major news outlet would be running the story. My phone was buzzing constantly with calls and messages, but I ignored them all. Instead, I walked to Central Park and found a quiet bench overlooking the reservoir. The autumn air was crisp and clean, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe freely. Emily had wanted to play games with my reputation and my life. She'd forgotten that I'd been playing in Manhattan's corporate jungle for 20 years, and I knew how to hunt. The prey was cornered, wounded, and completely exposed. Now, it was time to act. Friday evening brought the kind of thunderstorm that makes Manhattan feel like the set of a noir film. Lightning split the sky above my new penthouse apartment, and rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling windows with biblical intensity. I'd moved out of the apartment I'd shared with Emily and into a sleek modern space in Tribeca, complete with a rooftop terrace and a view of the Hudson River. It was smaller than our old place, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture, every book, every bottle of wine chosen by me alone. The past 24 hours had been a masterpiece of controlled destruction. Emily's text messages had gone viral, spawning memes, reaction videos, and think pieces about authenticity in the social media age. Her remaining sponsors had fled like rats from a sinking ship, and her follower count was in free fall. Lucas had fared even worse. Destruction of property? Of course not, but get out. Ethan, get out of my apartment, Gemma, and don't come back. She left, but not before taking photos of the damage with her phone. Within an hour, she'd posted them on her Instagram story with a caption about the aftermath of a toxic marriage. The narrative was already being spun, Vanessa as the victim of an abusive relationship who'd been driven to desperate measures. It might have worked, if not for Mike's digital warfare skills. "Check this out," he said, showing me his laptop screen. He'd created anonymous social media accounts and was systematically sharing the truth about Lucas's scam operation. Screenshots of his planning documents, evidence of his other victims, proof that Vanessa was just another mark in his con game. The response was immediate and brutal. Vanessa's Instagram comments filled with people calling her out for being naive, stupid, or complicit. Her follower count began dropping rapidly as sponsors and brands distanced themselves from the scandal. But the real damage came when Mike released Lucas's relationship spreadsheet, the document where he'd tracked how much money he planned to extract from each woman, including Vanessa. V, Seattle, married, high-income potential, 127K followers, target, 50,000. The screenshot went viral within hours. Suddenly, Vanessa wasn't a victim anymore. She was a cautionary tale about influencer culture, social media narcissism, and the dangers of living your life for the approval of strangers. The local news picked up the story that evening. Social media influencer arrested in elaborate romance scam. They interviewed some of Lucas's other victims, women who'd lost thousands of dollars to his fake emergencies and manufactured crises. I watched the coverage from my hotel room. The apartment was still a crime scene and would need extensive repairs before I could move back in. It felt surreal, seeing my private humiliation turned into public entertainment. My phone rang. Maya's name flashed on the screen. Jesus, Ethan, I just saw the news. Are you okay? I'm fine. You don't sound fine. You sound like you're in shock. Maybe I was. 3 days ago, I'd been married to a successful influencer, living in a nice apartment, thinking my biggest problem was a distant wife. Now, I was divorced, homeless, and watching my ex-wife's mugshot on the evening news. Do you want me to come over? Maya asked. I'm not at the apartment. I'm staying at the Marriott downtown until I can find a new place. I'm coming over. Maya arrived with Thai food and a bottle of wine. We sat on the hotel room's generic couch, eating pad Thai and watching the news coverage of my marriage's spectacular implosion. I'm proud of you, she said finally. For what? Getting my life destroyed by my wife and her boyfriend? For fighting back, for not letting them get away with it. On the TV, they were showing Lucas's mugshot. He looked exactly like what he was, a small-time con artist who'd finally been caught. I keep thinking about what she said, I admitted, that I was boring, pathetic, that she never loved me. She was trying to hurt you. People say terrible things when they're trying to justify their own behavior. But what if she was right? What if I am boring? Maya turned to face me. Ethan, you just took down a professional con artist and exposed a romance scam that was targeting women across 3 states. You gathered evidence, built a case, and made sure the people responsible faced consequences. That's not boring. That's badass. I smiled for the first time in days. Thanks. Besides, you know what's really boring? Destroying your marriage for Instagram likes, and a guy who drives a yellow Jeep. The arraignment was scheduled for the next morning. Ava called to brief me on what to expect. Vanessa's lawyer is going to try to paint her as a victim, she warned. They'll claim she was manipulated, that Lucas was the mastermind and she was just following his lead. Will that work? Not with the evidence we have. The surveillance footage shows her actively participating in the theft and destruction. The financial records show she was moving money days before the actual break-in. This was premeditated. What's the likely sentence? For the theft alone, she's looking at 2 to 5 years. Add in the property destruction, fraud, and the premeditated nature of the crimes, and it could be much longer. I should have felt satisfied. Justice was being served. The people who'd tried to destroy my life were facing serious consequences. Instead, I just felt tired. Ethan? Ava's voice brought me back to the present. Are you having second thoughts about pressing charges? No, I said firmly. She made her choice. I know how to research, how to plan, how to execute a strategy with precision and patience. This is insane, Amanda said. You're talking about deliberate emotional and financial abuse. I'm talking about consequences, I replied, turning back to face them. Emily wanted to play games with my life, my reputation, my marriage. She wanted excitement and drama. Well, congratulations, Emily. You got both. Lucas was pacing now, his composure completely shattered. You can't just ruin people's lives because your feelings got hurt. Watch me. I pulled out my phone and opened a new app. This is a live stream to my social media accounts. Say hello to the internet, everyone. The red recording light appeared on my phone screen, and I could see the viewer count climbing rapidly. Within seconds, hundreds of people were watching. Ladies and gentlemen, I said to the camera, I'd like you to meet my wife Emily, her boyfriend Lucas, and my former colleague Victor. They're here tonight to ask me to stop telling the truth about their behavior. Emily scrambled off the couch. Turn that off. You can't broadcast this. Actually, I can. This is my apartment, and you're here voluntarily. Say something for your fans, Emily. Oh wait, you don't have any left. The viewer count was climbing into the thousands now. Comments were flooding in. OMG, is this really happening? Emily looks terrible. Team Buster. This is better than Netflix. Lucas lunged for my phone, but I stepped aside easily. He stumbled and fell against the coffee table, knocking over my Scotch glass. Careful, Lucas. You're on camera now. Wouldn't want people to think you're unstable. Please, Emily begged, her voice barely audible. I'll do anything. I'll disappear. I'll never bother you again. Just make it stop. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. The beautiful, confident woman who had once turned heads at every party was gone, replaced by someone desperate and broken. For just a moment, I felt something that might have been pity. Then I remembered her voice in that kitchen recording, laughing about how stupid and predictable I was, how she was going to take me for everything I was worth. You want this to stop, Emily? Then here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign the divorce papers without contest. You're going to take your settlement and disappear from my life forever. And you're never going to contact me, my friends, or my colleagues again. And if we don't? Victor asked. I smiled at the camera. Then I released the rest of the evidence, the photos of Victor taking bribes from clients, the recordings of Lucas bragging about his drug use at company parties, the videos of Emily mocking disabled children in her DMs. Their faces went white. I'd been bluffing about some of it, but their reactions told me I'd hit close enough to the truth. You're a monster, Emily whispered. No, Emily. I'm just someone who got tired of being treated like a fool. I turned back to the camera. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you handle betrayal in the modern age. Thank you for watching. I ended the live stream and set down my phone. The apartment fell silent, except for the sound of rain against the windows. Get out, I said quietly. All of you. And don't come back. They filed toward the elevator like defeated soldiers retreating from a battlefield. Emily was the last to leave, pausing at the door to look back at me. I did love you, she said. At the beginning. I know, I replied. But love wasn't enough for you. You wanted more money, more attention, more excitement. Well, you got it. The elevator doors closed and they were gone. I poured myself another scotch and walked out onto the terrace, letting the rain soak through my clothes. The storm was beginning to pass, and I could see breaks in the clouds where stars were starting to appear. My phone buzzed with notifications. The live stream had been viewed by over 50,000 people and was already being shared across every social media platform. By morning, it would be international news. Emily's authentic living brand was finally, truly authentic. She'd shown the world exactly who she really was, and the world had rejected her completely. I raised my glass to the storm-washed city below. To authentic living, I said aloud, and to getting exactly what you deserve. Lightning flashed one final time across the Manhattan skyline, illuminating the city in brilliant white light. In that moment, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, complete and total satisfaction. The revenge was perfect, the victory was absolute, and the boring husband had become the most interesting man in New York.